This is all that remains of Oradour-sur-Glane. Burned cars, shattered windows, empty streets, frozen in time. On June 10th, 1944, this was a thriving French town with 642 residents. By sunset, it was a graveyard. And here's the shocking part. The French government decided it should stay that way forever. But why? What happened here was so horrific that an entire nation agreed. This place must never be rebuilt, never be forgotten, and never be lived in again. Oradour-sur-Glane seemed like the safest place in occupied France. A quiet farming town in the Limousin region, far from major cities, far from strategic targets. No military bases, no weapons factories, no resistance activity. Just ordinary people living ordinary lives. The town had everything a peaceful community needed. A school where children learned their lessons. A church where families gathered on Sundays. Shops, cafes, and workshops where neighbors knew each other by name. It was the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked and children played freely in the streets. That's exactly why the SS chose it. June 10th, 1944. 4 days after D-Day, the Allies had landed in Normandy, and Nazi Germany was starting to panic. They needed to send a message, not to soldiers or resistance fighters, but to ordinary French civilians. This is what happens when you support the Allies. At 2 p.m., German troops surrounded Oradour-sur-Glane. Supergruppenführer Heinz Lammerdien ordered his men to gather. Every single person in the town square, men, women, children, babies, even visitors who just happened to be there that day. The SS told them this was a routine identity check. Papers would be examined, and everyone could go home. It was a lie. The soldiers separated the men from the women and children. The men were herded into barns and garages around the town. The women and children, 452 of them, were locked inside the church. What happened next was not random violence. It was systematic, planned, methodical murder. The SS had brought machine guns, grenades, and incendiary devices. This wasn't a spur-of-moment decision. They came prepared to kill everyone. At 4 p.m., the massacre began. Inside the church, mothers held their babies closer as smoke began filtering under the doors. The SS had placed an incendiary device in the nave, a crude but effective weapon, designed to fill the church with toxic smoke and flames. As the device exploded, panic erupted. Women desperately tried to break down the doors, but they were locked from the outside. They smashed windows, but the openings were too small and too high. The smoke grew thicker. The flames spread faster. Some women managed to boost their children up to the windows, hoping someone, anyone, might escape. Most didn't make it. The SS were waiting outside, with machine guns, shooting anyone who tried to flee. Only one woman survived the church massacre. Marguerite Rouffanche managed to climb through a window behind the altar and hide in the cemetery. Until nightfall, she lived to tell the world what happened inside that church. 451 women and children died in the church. The youngest victim was 8 days old. While hell consumed the church, the men faced their own nightmare. Locked in barns and workshops around the town, they could hear the screams, the gunfire, the crackling flames. The SS went building. Machine guns fired through doors and windows. Hand grenades were thrown into crowded spaces. When the shooting stopped, the buildings were set on fire to destroy the evidence. 190 men died that day. Only 6 survived, and only because they were buried under the bodies of their neighbors and pretended to be dead until the SS left. But the horror wasn't over. The SS weren't finished with Oradour-sur-Glane 9/8. The SS systematically destroyed the town itself. Every building was burned. Every car was torched. Even the church bell was melted in the flames. They weren't just killing people. They were trying to erase Oradour-sur-Glane from existence, as if 642 lives had never mattered. As if this peaceful town had never existed at all. The flames burned for days. When they finally died out, Oradour-sur-Glane was gone. Not just empty, obliterated. But here's what the SS didn't count on sometimes. Trying to erase something makes it immortal instead. After liberation, the French government faced a choice: rebuild Oradour-sur-Glane and try to move on, or preserve it exactly as the SS left it. Charles de Gaulle made a decision that shocked the world. Oradour-sur-Glane would never be rebuilt. It would remain a ruin forever, a permanent memorial to Nazi brutality. The burned cars would stay in the streets. The collapsed buildings would remain collapsed. The bullet holes would never be repaired. A new town was built nearby, also called Oradour-sur-Glane, but the old town, that would belong to the dead. This wasn't just about remembrance. It was about evidence. The French wanted the world to see exactly what the SS had done. Not read about it in books. Not hear about it in testimonies. But see it with their own eyes. Today, hundreds of thousands of people visit Oradour-sur-Glane every year. They walk the same streets where children played before they died. They see the church where 451 women and children burned alive. They read the names of every single victim carved into memorial stones. The ruins speak louder than any history book ever could. They say, this really happened. These were real people with real lives. And they were murdered for no reason other than being French civilians in a town the SS chose at random. But there's something else, the ruins say. Something the SS never intended. You failed. You tried to erase this town, but instead, you made it eternal. You tried to terrorize France into submission, but instead, you strengthened their resolve. You tried to prove that innocent lives don't matter, but instead, you created a place where every innocent life is remembered forever, for years. The official story was that Oradour was destroyed in retaliation for resistance activity. But that was propaganda. The truth was much worse. Oradour was chosen precisely because it was innocent. The SS wanted to prove they could murder anyone, anywhere, anytime. They wanted French civilians to know that compliance wasn't enough to keep them safe. Even if you did nothing wrong, you could still die. It took decades to get justice. Many of the SS officers responsible escaped to South America or lived quietly under false identities. Some were never caught. Others received sentences that seemed impossibly light for mass murder. But Oradour-sur-Glane itself became the most powerful testimony of all. Every preserved ruin is evidence. Every bullet hole is proof. Every memorial stone is a witness, can never be silenced. Oradour-sur-Glane vanished after the war. Because sometimes the most powerful way to remember something is to refuse to rebuild it. Sometimes ruins teach us more than restoration ever could. The French government understood something profound. There are crimes so terrible that the only appropriate response is to make sure they can never be forgotten. Not hidden in museums, not reduced to textbook paragraphs, but preserved exactly as they happened. This is why Oradour matters beyond World War II. It's a reminder that ordinary towns, ordinary people, ordinary days can be destroyed by extraordinary evil. But it's also proof that even the most systematic attempt to erase human lives from history can fail every year. The names of the 642 victims are read aloud in the town square. Every year, survivors and their descendants gather to remember. Every year, visitors from around the world learn what happened here. The SS wanted Oradour-sur-Glane to vanish without a trace. Instead, they created one of the most powerful memorials to human dignity ever built. Sometimes, a town dies so that memory can live forever. Sometimes, ruins speak louder than any reconstruction ever could. And sometimes, the best way to defeat those who try to erase history is to make sure that history becomes impossible to ignore. That Oradour-sur-Glane vanished after the war. But it also became eternal. That's the power of refusing to forget, and the reason why some places are too important. To rebuild, the town died so the truth could live forever.